Over in the context of Marvel Comics' current Amazing Spider-Man series, I think the Dark Web storyline has the biggest potential to spin the tale in some fascinating new story directions. I think this is thanks in large part to the hellish dimension of Limbo invading New York City, spawning so many demons out of the tale. But when Dark Web was over, we still got the return to some of these story ideas through the Limbo Embassy. My name is Arico Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and see if Hallows Eve Janine Godby is able to save her long-standing love interest Ben Reilly over in the pages of the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 2023 number 1. But before we get deeper into the video, want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. Hallows Eve will attempt her biggest scheme yet, breaking Chasm out of jail. Currently imprisoned in Madeline Pryor's new demonic Limbo Embassy, Spider-Man's misguided clone is more vengeful than ever, and Hallows Eve is the only one who dares to let him loose. Does she have the skills and nerve to go head-to-head against the Goblin Queen? And how will the dark tidings from this year's HELLFIRE Gala impact her bold rescue attempt? Want to share the creative team on this Amazing Spider-Man annual? We have writing in the issue over from Erica Schultz, featuring art from Julian Shaw, colors from Andrew Dalhouse, letters from VC's Joe Caramagna, and we have a cover for the issue coming in directly over from Corin, Howell, and Brian Reber. Here's a look over at the issue, showcasing some of the masks for Janine Godby, the Hallows Eve character, and a kind of confused look over at Spider-Man, which is kind of carried over from some of the issues of Dark Web as well. I want to extend a thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste, and let's spend a few moments focusing in on some of the artwork in the issue over from Julian Shaw. Julian Shaw renders an incredibly expressive line here, making this script already recall some of the main work in the series from artists John Romita Jr. and Ed McGuinness. I love this more animated line that we see across the series, and I think this page is a great way to kind of shift the tone of the issue right away. Sadly here, I think that some of the colors in the issue are a little bit flat in the storyline, leading me to get a little bit less immersed than I would have liked to. Also, I think that Julian Shaw renders a sense of anatomy that isn't quite up to par with some of the more expressive artists I've seen, like Ed McGuinness. It feels like some of the kind of character anatomy and limbs are a little bit amorphous across this series. The page designs are a little bit intriguing, but over on this page in particular that we have up on the screen, I would have loved if some of the lines were a little bit straighter instead of being more canted, because I did think that some of the page layouts broke a little bit of my immersion in the storyline. Getting the chance to see Hallows Eve utilize some of her masks and abilities to try and break Ben out of the Limbo Embassy was an enthralling way to kind of realize some of the storytelling across this title. This series actually does have a bit of a twist ending to kind of leave readers wanting more, and I'm hoping that some of these plot threads will be picked right back up over in the Dark X-Men series coming very, very soon for Marvel. I love how this comic book referenced just a few plot threads over for the main X-Men book, and also talks a little bit about the HELLFIRE Gala in some of the solicit information. Also, the second story is very firmly integrated into the X-Men, but with some of these Spider-Man characters as well. So really have to give it to some of the writing and the way that the editorial for Marvel kind of plotted out these two stories across both of these issues here. The final moments of Erica Schultz and Julian Shaw's story in the issue are a little bit morose here, but lend so much nuance and characterization to this title. I am very excited to see where Spider-Man picks up on some of these plot threads next, and to see if essentially some of the next material for Janine and Ben is going to be coming in the Amazing Spider-Man or in the Dark X-Men book. The way that Marvel Comics is kind of utilizing Spider-Man and X-Men together is really, really interesting, and I would love even more connective tissue to be introduced across both of these tales. Now, as we alluded to previously, there's actually two stories in the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 2023. The second one is written over from Celeste Bronfman, featuring art from David Lopez, colors from KJ Diaz and letters from VC's Joe Caramagna. This second story in the issue was absolutely wonderful and featured such beautiful artwork from David Lopez. This issue is largely focused on fleshing out some of Mary Jane and Peter Parker's relationship with their kind of family across this series. So watching Lopez render the expressions from some of these older characters is just beautiful in this tale. There's a surprise setup in the storyline, and I don't want to give it away, but it implements some of the elements from the previous Hellfire Gala to really bolster the story and move it in a much, much different direction. I also like the fact that previous elements of The Amazing Spider-Man as it pertains to Mary Jane are characterized here. It felt like Celeste Bronfman, in terms of some of the dialogue in the issue, was so kind of even-keeled and honest throughout the representation of the story. I think watching these characters like Aunt Anna as well as Paul in the story are feature pitch perfect characterization over from Bronfman in the tale as well. And I think this issue starts a little bit kind of happy and features great expressions from Lopez. But in the pages following this one that we have up on the screen, the storyline gets much, much darker. Watching the tale kind of implement darker and more psychologically harrowing material left an intriguing final element of this series that I would have never expected from the first couple pages. The last page is so incredibly dark that I think this plot thread has to be picked up in either a future issue of Amazing Spider-Man or in some future maybe Mary Jane or Black Cat spin-off tale. So at the end of the day here, I think that the Amazing Spider-Man 2023 annual #1 was a great extension of Dark Web as it pertains to the Marvel Universe. While the Dark X-Men series is just on the way, featuring Madeline Pryor operating out of her Limbo embassy, with the recent Hallows Eve miniseries just wrapping up for Marvel, I thought this was just a fantastic chance to kind of check in on the characterization and try and go full circle with Janine Godby's character. I want to know from you, what are some of your thoughts over on the Dark Web storyline? Did you like this Amazing Spider-Man annual? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming to check out our review of the Amazing Spider-Man annual 2023 #1, and we'll be back to talk Marvel Comics and Dark Web in the near future. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.